Last week, I identified that we probably wouldn't have very long before the final episode and resolved to complete some outstanding videos that I'd wanted to do throughout the year but hadn't. One of those was reading to you guys a series of short stories. There are 6 chapters pertaining to an interesting Asura character with her pet Moa, or her Moa companion, I should say. The devs were releasing online. I never showed you guys, never talked about. It's an interesting little series that was born from a panel that the narrative director then at the time, Leah Hoyer, and Ross Bealey, the narrative designer, were doing at MomoCon. So those chapters came out. I didn't cover them when I originally wanted to. Last time I read you guys chapter 1. Today, we're going to read all the rest. We're going to go from chapter 2 to chapter 6. This is going to be the rest of Tyrian Travels. Link in the description if you missed the first episode. There's some very interesting stuff about the Tengu and the Tengu Wall and the Dominion of Winds here. So, let's hear. We leave our character, Vicky, if you remember, who has invented this device that can tell the kind of end of life of various livestock. And it's reading that her Moa, even though it looks perfectly healthy, only has 1 year left remaining. And so she's out on an adventure to figure out exactly what's going on there. The Weeping Isle. I hesitated at the head of the footpath, uneasy about leaving the open road. What an awful name. Squawk! Momo replied, ruffling her feathers. She was distracted by the jellyfish swimming sinuous loops around fishing nets and seaweed, and she didn't seem as apprehensive as I was about approaching the home of the Soundless. But we needed directions and supplies, and I wanted to avoid Maben Market and the Asuran researchers there if I possibly could. The Weeping Isle was a lot like the other Sylvari settlements we'd seen on our way through the Caledon Forest, but weathered by wind and open water. A chime made of flat shells and reeds hung from a doorway, jangling in the warm breeze. The sky was clear and the waves calm. It didn't look like a place to weep at all. It looked like a place to take a nap. At a closer look, though, there were deep scars on the petioles of the nearest broad-leafed house, as though someone had taken a hatchet to it. The path to the little island was trampled with messy footprints, and it was very, very quiet. Most of what I knew of the Soundless, I'd heard secondhand, and it wasn't good. They'd brought the packed fleet down in the Maguma jungle, some people said, or they'd all risen up as one and marched north to join the Jungle Dragon's armies. All of that was demonstrably untrue. I'd even seen one in Ratassoon not long ago, but how should I approach them? Should I be friendly or somber and quiet? What do you think? I asked Momo. Do we just go up and say hello? Momo trilled, rising up on her toes the way she does when she's happy to see someone. I turned to the road to see what she was looking at. The tallest Sylvari I'd ever seen was walking towards us, on a course for the Isle. She was all brown and green with sweeping fern-like hair, and she was as broad as a tree. A visitor, she said when she saw us, and brushed past me and Momo, putting herself between us and the Weeping Isle. She knelt in the middle of the path, slid her rucksack from her shoulder, and started to unpack. Fruit, tools, I can sell it all to you right here at the roadside. Something in her voice made me hang back. I didn't sense any danger, and Momo was chirping inquisitively, but it reminded me of when I'd had to make unannounced calls on senior researchers. I was welcome at the door, but no further. Do you live here? I blurted out. The Sylvari gave me a wary look. Tools? You'd better be prepared if you're going very far. Are you with the crew? No, I haven't got a crew. What crew? Over there. She waved a hand in the direction of Maben Market. They said they were going to research the Fire Island. Does that mean anything to you? No, I pondered. The only place I can think of like that is the south. Way south. I'm only going to Queensdale. The Sylvari unrolled a thick reed mat and laid out gathering tools, red apples, and a big chunk of spike fruit wrapped in a leaf. The apples caught Momo's eye. She bobbed her head and peeped at the Sylvari. Momo, don't beg. Bad begging. I frowned. I'm sorry, she's not used to strangers. Momo made the tiniest, most pathetic, hungry baby bird sound and shoved her beak right under the Sylvari's hand. The Sylvari's eyes went wide and then she laughed. It seems very used to strangers, she said. Something in her rough face softened. You and I, though, perhaps not. Dayanol. It took me a tick to realise she was offering her name. I'm Vicky, and this is... Momo, yes. Daniel patted her and then offered an apple on the flat of her palm. Momo ate it in one big crunch. Is that alright? I was worried about my coin. Free since I gave in to begging. Daniel swirled her hands in the water to wash off the apple juice. What's in Queensdale? Moa experts. Momo's sick. Maybe. I'm not sure. I wavered. She needs a checkup. She looks healthy enough to me. There are pink moas nearby, but Momo has the grandest beak I've ever seen. Well, this was a topic I could sink my teeth into. That's because she's not really a pink moa. I mean, she is, but not by taxonomy. She's a black moa with a dilute colouring. The progeny I'd walked through this were usually either way ahead of me and just wanted to play with Momo or bored of the entire thing, but Daniel seemed impressed. Where did you find such a magnificent bird? Oh, of course I thought Momo was magnificent, but nobody else wanted her. Really? Even for her lovely colour? Momo preened. Sometimes I'm dead sure she understands the common tongue. Variation in avian pigmentation is already well documented, and she stands out too much for a serious ranger, I said. Daniel gave me a long look. Why did you want her? I like pink. And when I picked her up for the first time, she fell asleep under my chin. I see. She smiled at me. Then I'd say you both have an eye for quality. I smiled back, ducked my head, and managed to mumble something polite. In the end, I bought all of the apples. But they were very good apples. So okay, that's chapter 2. Let's kind of flub in the name of the female svari there a little bit. But yeah, so big reveal there. Obviously, this moa then is a black moa. Black moas, we actually have a lot of lore about, and they're a very special kind of moa. Particularly, they came from a hunter in Cantha by the name of Zoe. And one of any Guild Wars 1's players' favorite moments of the franchise probably was a side scavenger hunt quest thing the devs implemented that allowed you to get a black moa chick. So it's quite obvious why the writers have done a black moa here, but she's colored pink. Black moa were very weirdly kind of created back in GW1, and they had like a lot of mystical and weird magical properties about them. And so it's likely that this may have something to do with why the moa only has 1 year left, according to this device. But enough speculation about the future, let's go straight to Chapter 3. We got as far as the waypoint near Maben Market before I noticed that Momo was limping. I led her over to the big bridge connecting the mainland to the Tengu Gate, with my stomach doing uneasy flips. She didn't seem lethargic or listless, but she favoured one leg. I told myself she'd just picked up a pebble, that it was nothing to be worried about, but my brain supplied dozens of horrible possibilities. While I examined her, a Tengu merchant rattled past us, leading a handcart and a small herd of moas. Momo strained towards them, trilling, and I had my work cut out for me, getting her to hold still. Maybe I hadn't done such a stellar job training her after all. I sat down with her foot in my lap. There were metallic flakes stuck to the bottom of her toes, and something bristly poked my thumb when I rubbed them away. I leaned in close. Wires? Maybe she'd stepped on something at the junk auction. Momo whistled, distressed. I know you hate having your feet messed with, I said, but give me half a second. The wires were too short to pull out with my fingers alone, but I didn't have any tweezers or delicate implements. I worked my nails around them and tugged. Poor Momo. They were really stuck in there. Momo tried to yank her foot away. I'd have to work fast before she got fed up and refused to hold still at all. Shh, just a little more. I pulled hard. 3 things happened at once. The wires came free. I fell backwards onto my tailbone, and my glasses flew off and clattered away. Momo squawked, shooting an arrow of guilt straight through my heart. Momo, I patted around, frantic. Where were my glasses? Everything was blurry, and a pink blob wobbled down the bridge away from me. Momo, come back! Finding my glasses took a few minutes, but Momo couldn't have gotten far. And yet, the only way she could have gone was towards the Dominion of Winds. I'd heard that during the attack on Lion's Arch, the Tengu ruthlessly shot down anyone who came near the gate. Would they hurt a defenseless moa? I shoved my glasses back on and ran. The sides of the bridge were too high for Momo to have hopped into the water, and I didn't see her wandering around the wall, but I did see 2 Tengu guards, who stopped talking as soon as they saw me and moved into defensive positions. Moa, I gasped, careening to a halt. Pink! The Tengu exchanged a look. One was slender, dressed in a blue tunic. The other wore brown, and I thought they looked a little older. No further, the slender one said. What do you want from us? I gulped air and tried again. Pink moa. I lost her. She ran this way and... I raised my head, casting around to see if she was hiding in one of the flowery bushes or if she'd run down the strip of shoreline near the gate. Nothing. The gate itself caught my eye, and I couldn't help looking up, and up, and up. It made me dizzy. My breathing felt louder, as though the sheer size had sucked the sound out of the air. It was like the cubes in Ratassoum. Beautiful, but too big. Monstrously big. Your moa? The slender Tengu said, startling me back to attention. Yes, have you seen her? She's about as tall as your bow, and she's electric pink, and she's wearing a spiked collar. Her name is Momo, and she's my... The older Tengu raised a clawed hand. We have seen no such moa. But she had to have come this way. I couldn't see any reason for them to lie, but I only lost her down there at the other end of the bridge. No such moa, the Tengu repeated, head feathers ruffling. Be on your way, please. But the slender Tengu looked at me. I might have seen such a moa. Hayato, the older one said. I knew a warning when I heard it. There were 1 or 2 pink ones in the merchant's herd. My stomach flopped. She must have gotten mixed in with them. Please, I don't want to impose on you, but Momo's all I got, really, and I could never forgive myself if I lost her. The Tengu bent their heads together, talking in whispers. Oh, come now, I heard the one called Hayato say. It is certainly her pet. The other guard turned away. Do as you like, then. I won't be a part of it. Hayato approached me. It wouldn't do to have a strange animal inside the area. She wears a spiked collar, you said? Yes. There was a strange tension in the air, but I was too worried to be afraid. And ankle guards. Can you see without your eyepieces? My glasses? No, not well. Go to the waypoint and take them off, please. And turn your back. And wait. I nodded, taking a deep breath. I turned and walked back down the bridge. When I reached the waypoint, I took my glasses off and waited. It was very hard not to turn around, but Momo's life could depend on me doing exactly as Hayato had said. I'm not sure how much time passed, but it was long enough that I'd started to lean on a stone when I heard someone call, Hello? I turned. A blue blur and a pink blur were coming towards me. I heard Momo peep, and I just remembered to put my glasses on before running to her. Thank you, I buried my face into Momo's feathers. She nipped at my hair, not upset at all. I am so sorry for the trouble, I don't know how to thank you. Hayato crouched down next to us and scratched under Momo's beak. You can thank me by never passing this close to the gate again. Even though I didn't know how to read a Tengu's expression, the tone was deadly serious. It sunk in that they had done something enormous for me, and I felt like I was standing beneath the great gate again, with all the sound leached from the air. I understand, I swallowed. Thank you. And promise me, Hayato said wryly, walking away, that you'll never invent anything that allows a moa to speak. And there we go, that's the end. It's very hard for me to voice that chapter there because, as those long-time watchers of me will know, I do a pretty convincing Asian accent. It's also quite over the top, so I was really trying to be restrained there. What a great story, though! Chapter 2 is amazing. Sorry, Chapter 3 is amazing. I love this one. I love that they remembered that the Tengu had fired on people in that Lion's Arch update, something that had never properly been alluded to in the lore until this post, since it actually happened. Really gives that kind of mystical feeling about them. You get to see some of the young maybe are more willing to let outside races in, but the older Tengu are much more jaded and they don't like it. We hear a bit more about the Airy on the inside. Fantastic. Really liked that chapter. Basically anything to do with the Dominion of Winds is great, right? And it's cool because what they kind of managed to get away with there is tell us a story about it, reintroduce it to our thoughts, just as they did with the Fire Island chain in the previous chapter, which by the way became a map. They bring it back, but they didn't actually have to tell us anything. Nothing new really was added there. It was just a nice descriptive story about how it went. Okay, so let's move on to Chapter 4. Now, Chapter 4 came out on October 31st of last year, which you guys should know was around Halloween. So, it's probably going to be a little bit themed with that, judging by some of these screenshots. So let's do it. Twilight had fallen by the time we crossed the Crichton border, which nixed my plans to let Momo run around for a while. It also meant that we got all the way to Shaymore before I realised something was slipping around in the trees behind us. I hunkered down in the open road to feed Momo an apple, taking the opportunity to look around. When I didn't see anything, I watched Momo instead. Sure enough, after she'd demolished her snack, she whistled and fluffed up nervously. Whatever was back there had stopped moving when we did. I wanted to think we'd just gotten spooked by the holiday. Lion's Arch is supposed to be where the spirit of King Oswald Thorne returns every year to haunt Kryta, but the rest of the kingdom was in the mood too. We'd passed scarecrows with rotting pumpkin heads along the roadside, seen people in bizarre costumes traipsing through the fields, and I'd even been handed a flyer for a Halloween stage show. "Don't touch any strange doors," a tavern keeper had warned me. "They might pop up anywhere." But there were plenty of things to be scared of in the Krytan countryside at any time of the year, like Skelk or bandits. I hustled Momo along. A scout pointed me towards the Moa Ranch. It was tiny, but their birds seemed to be in good spirits, and the hands were just putting them all into the pen when Momo and I arrived. Meppy, the ranch's owner, stopped to talk to me at the gate. I explained why we'd come and apologised for arriving so late. "I'll take a look at her in the morning," Meppy said. "You got a place to stay?" "No," I admitted. "Well, why don't you come inside? It's nothing fancy, but it's a roof over your head. We'll put out the straw mattress and you can eat with me and Cassie." It was a very generous offer. The Krytan ranchers don't have much except what they make themselves, and I was a stranger. Still, the idea of spending the night made me feel a little queasy. What would I say if they tried to do something nice for me to be too polite? What if I made a mistake and did something to mess up their house? What if they served Moa for dinner? "That's very kind of you, but Momo gets a little anxious in new places." I clasped my hands to hold them steady. "Would it be too much trouble for me to stay in the stable with her?" Meppy rubbed his chin. "I don't know, we've had all kinds of bandit trouble. Though they haven't been out much at night, it's that time of year. But I suppose as long as you stay with the Moas, you'll be alright." "What do you mean?" I said. "Just you stay put." Meppy strolled towards the farmhouse. "I'll get you a blanket." I draped the blanket over my shoulders and settled into the stable with Momo. She fussed, preening at my hair and then curled around me. I leaned back against her. She doesn't make a bad pillow, and propped my feet up on my pack. Something bounced into my lap, and I jolted upright. Bright, green eyes blinked at me, tiny paws kneaded my stomach, and purring filled my ears. "Oh, you're only a kitty." The little black cat nosed my chin and draped itself across my legs. Momo opened one eye just long enough to be unimpressed with it, and I relaxed again. This wasn't bad at all. The grass smelled sweet, the mowers were warbling contentedly not far from us, and the windows of Meppy's house glowed with a soft golden light. I'd slept in much worse places in college. With one hand under the cat's chin, I closed my eyes. I dreamed I was falling through a starry sky, a green miasma swirling below me. When it broke, I was in open air. Below me stretched a vast, twisted landscape of black stone, warped and barren trees and strange fires. A broken path wound through it, opening onto a graveyard with one lonely mausoleum raised on a spire of stone at the centre. I heard laughter and screaming, and as I hurtled closer, I saw that the labyrinth was full of people, all of them running, fighting, and dancing as they went around and around. No, not just people, creatures. Above the chaos, the moon loomed, grinning. I shut my eyes tight. When I opened them, I was standing on a cliff overlooking the labyrinth. More people jostled around me, passing in and out of a door that opened to the starry void. They were terrifying and a little unreal. A human lady in a corseted velvet gown, a svari with horns and a huge leathery bat wings, another asura wearing a fiery pumpkin head mask. All of them carried weapons. Some of them walked to the edge of the cliff, stood on a sigil, and vanished in a rush of wind. Momo was nearby, examining a large gourd. Just as I moved towards her, a rough voice called, "Well, well, what'll it be?" I turned back. A char stood on a raised stone platform near the edge of the cliff, leaning on a staff. He was dressed in a tattered shroud, blindfolded and draped in chains, his horns sawed at short. At least, he looked like a char. His tail glowed like a live ember. "Me?" I squeaked. The char stretched out his staff, a glowing green lantern gripped by a skeletal hand swung from the end. "You? Do you have the skill to climb the clock tower? Care to join the parade of death in the labyrinth?" I shielded my eyes and found my voice. "Neither, please." He dropped to all fours, craning his very long neck toward me and sniffed. "You're not even the tiniest bit curious?" The labyrinth was too big, and the screams and laughter were too much. All the people passing by were dangerous and powerful. I felt completely lost. No, thank you, I rubbed my arms. I'd really just like to go back to where I was. The Char bared his teeth at me. Run away then, he said. Run right back to where you started. I fled to the door, dragging Momo with me. If I could have carried her, I would have. This time, when I tumbled into the starry night, I only felt relief. When I woke up, my heart was still racing. The cat had gone, leaving my legs cold. Momo was fast asleep, and so were other Moas. I didn't even hear a peep. I laid very still and tried to calm down. I concentrated so hard on convincing myself that my imagination was working overtime that I didn't believe my eyes when a patch of shadow pulled free from the stable's back wall and crept towards me. Not happening, I thought, pretending to breathe normally. Not happening! Something lifted my foot aside. I heard a clink and the softest rustling. Somebody was going through my pack. There we go, that's chapter 4. Honestly, I'm not sure how much I like chapter 4. It's got the intrigue at the end, and it's got the progression of us getting to the ranch. But it feels like they were just short on ideas and decided they would describe a couple of random NPCs and the phenomena of Halloween. I mean, we get a very slight look into what it might be as a Crichton civilian during Halloween. But then it just sort of goes into describing stuff we see in game, and I think that's a little bit boring. But hey, there you go, that's chapter 4. And we do progress, of course, with the story just a little bit more. Only 2 chapters to go now before the end of our story here. Which, again, I'll remind you guys, on the first video, I never read these last couple of chapters here. So I don't know whether this has a satisfying conclusion or not. I guess we'll see. Nothing was missing from my bag when I woke up, aside from 1 apple. I discovered the culprit for that when I caught Momo pretending to be asleep on the half-eaten core. But I was sure she'd been asleep when someone reached into my pack. Maybe I'd been asleep? It could have been a lingering nightmare. The world still felt a little out of focus when I left Momo at Meppy's ranch for the day. I'll give her a good looking over, Meppy said. Why don't you stretch your legs in the meantime? Saying, no, thank you, I'd rather sit here and worry, wouldn't be polite or productive. So I lifted my ears and tried to look chipper. Sure, what do you recommend? There's Ida's Orchard, not far from here, and some folks that like to look at the dam. Then there's the city, of course, if you don't mind a walk. I didn't mind the walk. People aren't Asura wander through Ratasum wide-eyed, marveling at the cubes floating in the clouds. The holograms and golems might as well be pure magic to some of them. I thought maybe I'd find Divinity's Reach as quaint and rustic as Shaymore. As soon as I stepped through the gates, I realized that the human city had been built to house hundreds of thousands of people, most of whom are at least 3 feet taller than me. I could have fit an entire flock of mowers, shoulder to shoulder in each of the avenues, and just thinking of the scaffoldings they must have needed to build so many massive towers and arches without levitation technology made me break out in a cold sweat. I wandered up the stone streets and into the first hallway I saw and gasped. The walks were made of clear glass lit from within, and fish swam back and forth behind them. If Momo had been with me, she would have gone absolutely wild. It was cool and peaceful, and I'd have stayed there much longer if I hadn't been in the way of pedestrian traffic. Beyond the aquarium hall was a sprawling garden. Shaped hedges lined the footpaths, and pillars draped in flowering vines reached towards a domed glass ceiling. Suspended from that was a huge orrery of burnished metal. Its moon was a crescent with a smiling face, and the whole contraption creaked pleasantly as it rotated. Asuran technology can be stunning, but humans seem to value beauty over function. Unfortunately, it didn't strike me as the sort of garden you could curl up and go to sleep in. I was still half rested and I really wanted a cup of strong coffee. A svari in blue and white armor was standing nearby, so I made myself ask for directions. He was huge, but he had a kindly face. Better yet, there was a little animal poking its whiskery nose over his shoulder. When I giggled, it darted into the savari's bag. He introduced himself as Isandur. The easiest way to remember where you are, he said, is to know the names of the 6 human gods. The city is divided between them. There's Melandru, Dwayna, Cormir, Lissa, Grenth, and Balthazar? I can envision them vaguely. It might have been Dwayna's statue I passed on the way in. He smiled. Balthazar. And yes, if you're looking for coffee, you might try the Orson Quarter. Take Grenth High Road and then the left-hand path down. Grenth High Road ran right up to the city's stone walls. Even the Tengu gate was smaller. It made me dizzy. If something that big fell inward, it would wipe out everything below. At the end was another god statue, a human priest, and a Norn woman leaning against the wall, but I didn't want to get any closer. I shivered. It'd be much nicer to look out over the city, but there was a tall ledge on either side of the road. I jumped to grab the edge of it, dug my toes between the bricks, and pulled myself up. The city sprawled out like a massive canyon, with slope-roofed houses poking up like rocks below, and the streets winding through them like streams and rivers. Hundreds of white birds swooped through the air from one end to the other. Would they ever even need to leave a city this big to get food or make a nest? Maybe they thought this was the whole world. I sat down, hugging my knees. The ledge was broad enough that I didn't worry about falling off. Just beneath me, humans wandered through a courtyard full of elaborate stone buildings and, headstones. Did they bury their dead here in the city? The Norn woman who'd been leaning against the wall wandered over and braced her foot against the ledge. To her, it was the size of a stepping stool. What is in the cemetery? It took me a moment to realise she was talking to me. Oh, nothing in particular. It struck me that it might be rude of me to watch people visit the graves. I just stopped to sit for a minute. I was sitting in her shadow, which made me shiver again. I looked up. She had a round, freckled face, sharp blue eyes, and copper hair woven in a braid as long as 3 of me. Her pale skin was a little wind-reddened, and she was bundled up in black furs and leather. She looked at me like a cat looks at a bug. Suddenly, the ledge didn't seem wide enough anymore. I'd heard that there were human bandits even in the city, but... I'm sorry, my palms felt disgusting and sweaty. I tried not to be too obvious about wiping them on my pants. I'm new here and everything's big and I'm kind of nervous. Can I help you? She sat down next to me and smiled. I think you can. I smiled back, relaxing. Oh, she wanted to chat. I wondered if it was as hard as being tall in Divinity's reach as it was being my size. I opened my mouth to ask her about it, hoping it would break the ice, when she reached out and grabbed my wrist. Hey! My voice failed, the way it does when I tried to scream for help in a bad dream. Her hand was as big as my entire forearm, and she was so strong that I couldn't even move it. The Norn leaned in. Why don't we introduce ourselves? She said softly, still smiling. You can start by telling me how you know Tony. Then, I'll tell you what I need you to do. And so there we go, that's chapter 5. Gets a little bit sinister there. I really like this chapter. I really like their little references to the way that Divinity's reach would feel to an Asura in terms of its size. They use a lot of stuff. Talking about the size, it's interesting because you really associate that more with the Norn than anything else, but I guess it's all dependent on your perspective, and if you're an Asura, every damn city or place you go is going to seem massive. I also see here a little bit of teasing about Balthazar, maybe, because they knew where Living World Season 3 was going to go, so they put that little extra stress maybe on that one particular god. Do you guys think that was important? And then that idea of one of the walls falling inwards, well, that's kind of what we saw happen at the Great Collapse. I wonder if the devs were doing something on purpose there. So that's chapter 5, and then the final chapter, again, which I have never read, is coming up. So this is how it ended. Let's see. Let go of me, I said. By reflex, I looked over my shoulder, and the drop into Divinity's reach spun below me. The graveyard's highest spires were at least 20 feet down, and the hard stone courtyard was almost 50. I imagined what would happen if the Norn woman released my wrist too suddenly, leaving me off balance, or if she gave me a shove. Actually, I added, and it came out as a squeak, could you let me down off the ledge first? I don't think you need to worry about that. Yet, her smooth voice implied. All I need are answers to my questions. Until I get them, we're going to sit here. Her grip wasn't tight enough to hurt, but it was like having my wrist trapped in a sphygmomanometer cuff. I didn't struggle. The priest was still nearby, but if I screamed or made a scene, he might not get to me before the Norn did something awful. Even if I managed to get away from her, she'd outpace me in seconds. My best bet was to sit still and wait for an opportunity. Tony must have sent her. Maybe she was having buyer's remorse, or maybe, I thought uncharitably, she just regrets paying me. I knew she was successful, but not that she'd had enforcers to do her dirty work. You didn't have to grab me, I said. You could have just asked. Tony made me an offer, and I took it. What does she want? The Norn arched her brows. You didn't part on good terms, I take it. No! My face grew hot. I'd never done anything to Tony, but she always went out of her way to make me miserable. Tell her she can do whatever she wants with the device. I don't care about it anymore, but she's the one who said it was broken. She knew what she was paying for. She loosened her grip on me a little, narrowing her eyes. The device is broken? I don't know. When I tested it for her, it gave me an unexpected reading. Her fingers tightened again. You tested it? I demonstrated it! A bird took off from the nearest stone roof, beating its wings. I swallowed hard, looking to see if the priest had heard me, but he wandered to the other side of the god statue. That's the whole reason I was there. It was silly of me to sell it to her, but I didn't think anyone would want it, especially if it didn't work. I don't know what she told you, and I guess it's my word against hers, but I'm sorry if she lied to you to get you to come here. She does that a lot. It was the first time I'd ever outright said that Tony lied. Concepts like lying got fuzzy in academics, where I'd learned fast that what really mattered was people's willingness to believe in layers of proof. Could I prove Tony had done something wrong and then blamed it on me? That she'd meant to do it with malicious intent? Would people who had no reason to think badly of her believe me over her? She was always so good at talking her way out of situations. I couldn't even claim to be good at talking. To my surprise, the Norn slowly let go of my wrist. She leaned back, her posture changing from aggressive to relaxed, like the two of us really were having a casual conversation. It sounds like a friendship gone sour, she said, and even her voice was gentler, understanding. I didn't like it. Not exactly. I'd rather not talk about it if it's all the same to you. Things have a way of getting back to her, especially from people who work for her. I scooted off the ledge and onto the street, half expecting her to reach for me again. Who said I was working for Tony? I'm looking for her. My burst of adrenaline was fading, leaving me angry and snappish. Then what did you scare me for? What's going on? The device you sold to her. It should have been about the size of your fist, is that right? Yes. Who gave it to you? I did. I blinked. I was starting to think I'd stumbled onto something way over my head. I mean, nobody gave it to me. I invented it. It was just a crummy thing I built to try and get funding from my crew, that's all. And what does it do? It's supposed to analyze livestock and predict their lifespans. She stood, folding her arms and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Raven's quills, she muttered. I almost felt sorry for her, then remembered how she'd first looked at me, like a wrinkle in need of ironing. I was more worried about Momo than anything, I said. So I don't know what happened to Tony after she took the advice. I'm sorry. Momo? My pet mower. The Norn knelt in front of me. It caught me off guard. Bigger people almost never do that. Either you're a very good actor, she said, looking me in the eyes, or I owe you an apology. I rubbed my wrist. I'll settle for an explanation. Call me Alfildir. She smiled at me, but it seemed forced. And before I explain anything, I'd like to see Momo. Alarm shot through me. Why? Because I might be able to tell you why your device malfunctioned. And because right now, you and your pet are my only leads. Wow, and that's the end. I can't believe it. So they just ended it. So hold on. I thought there were 6 chapters and we had a conclusion. But no, that ends on a total cliffhanger. The last post, guys, was January 12th. It has been half a year since we had a post. And I'll remark as well that there was a huge gap between the Halloween release and this one. So what, did the devs just forget about this? Please tell me this isn't like some kind of like dropped story. That's actually getting reasonably interesting there. Will we see something about this in the expansion maybe? Or in the finale? I doubt it. But okay, there you go. We are caught up. That's crazy. What do you guys think then? So I guess we might expect a little bit more of this at some point. That's Tyrian Travels, Chapter 6. I will let you all know when more comes out. If we're interested in this, we will keep going. And yeah, we'll see exactly what happens with this mystery, whether these characters will appear in game in some larger capacity, or where things might be going there. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks very much for watching. I'm glad to have given this to you all before we rush into all the crazy stuff that goes on. And take it easy, everyone. I will see you for more lore and interesting stuff tomorrow. Wow, I'm blown away. I'm blown away that doesn't have an ending. I don't know how to feel. I'll see you guys next time.